Responsible for the murders of more than 120 people in the 1970s. A gang of loyalist paramilitaries who killed both north and south of the Irish border. For years, they were rumoured to be working with police officers and soldiers. Now, Channel 4 News has had exclusive access to police investigations of past murders, which throw new light on how far that collusion went. As our chief correspondent Alex Thompson reports from Armagh, some of the families of those murdered by bomb and bullet almost 40 years ago only now feel they're getting to the truth.
The countryside around Armagh in the mid-70s. Security forces at full stretch because of the IRA. At the same time, loyalists were also killing dozens of people. And even at the time, there were claims that both the police and army were working with them. Tonight, almost 40 years on, new details about how deep that collusion went.
I deserve answers. I was deprived of my childhood, as was my brother. We need answers to this.
There was collusion by the forces. Or, forget about collusion, how many policemen were involved?
What's coming to light in papers seen by this programme and a new book is the extent to which one group in Armagh, the so-called Glenanne gang of police officers, soldiers and loyalist paramilitaries, colluded in the murder of over 120 people. All bar one of the victims had no paramilitary connections. We've seen previously unpublished reports by the team re-examining the killings of the Troubles and their damning conclusions about just how much the police really knew. There were extraordinary decisions taken to withhold intelligence. One report describes a catastrophic failure which led to the deaths of civilians. Another says alarm bells should have rung all the way to the top of government. These days, the site of the Step-In Bar in Cady is an electrical appliance shop. You'd pass it without a second thought. But on August the 16th, 1976, a no-warning car bomb detonated here. 2 people were killed, more than 20 injured, many seriously. The owner, Malachy MacDonald, staggered into the rubble and saw his wife Betty covered in blood and dead. Their 4-year-old son Lawrence clung to her, shouting, "Mummy." For 37 years until tonight, he's never spoken publicly about what happened to his wife.
There was 3 steps to the bottom bar, and down the 3 steps, and that's where I found Betty lying with her usually smiling blue eyes staring at me. But you know, I knew it happened, but somehow I pretended to myself it didn't. I was in a trance.
In a trance?
Yeah. Fixation, you know.
Because of the grief?
Yeah.
For 37 years, Malachy MacDonald and his family have lived with the agony of what happened here where the Step-In Bar used to be in Cady. Only now, incredibly, do they feel they're getting near to the truth of what took place. That's because police intelligence papers have at last come to light. They were found by detectives from the Historical Inquiries Team, the HET. As part of the peace process, they've investigated scores of murders, including those committed by the Glenanne gang. Channel 4 News has had exclusive access to the HET reports investigating these attacks, including the bombing at Cady. That report reveals that in the days running up to the attack, the police had reliable intelligence that loyalist paramilitaries were planning a major bombing, that they were storing the bomb at this farmhouse used by the gang and then owned by a part-time policeman. It's long since changed ownership. Knowing an attack was imminent, police brought in army surveillance. Yet on the day of the bombing, it was suddenly withdrawn. Nothing was done to stop the bombing or arrest the people they were watching. There was no reasoning or rationale for this, the HET says. Even if it was done to protect informants' identities, it was a huge gamble which went catastrophically wrong, the report says. Whatever the reason, it left the bombers free to drive the short distance to the Step-In Bar in Cady. Only now, more than 30 years after this atrocity, is it at last becoming clear what a comprehensive picture the RUC Special Branch had of this bomb attack before, during and after it took place. Names, addresses of suspects, they had it all. And yet the HET report reveals none of this information was ever passed on to the officers investigating the attack in Cady. At the time, detectives said they'd investigated as far as they could, but they didn't know what the RUC Special Branch knew. And as the HET report now says, this murder investigation was thus doomed to fail.
It was glaringly obvious as to how those people could have been accessed and brought to justice, and that didn't happen. So the report is laced with an identification of a series of policing and intelligence failings.
In a book published tomorrow, the former journalist and now researcher with the Pat Finucane Centre for Human Rights, Anne Cadwallader, charts the collusion of police, army and the Glenanne gang.
The Historical Inquiries team has lifted the carpet and we can all see for the first time what has been swept underneath. How much more is there under that carpet? The truth really matters to this society. We can't build a shared future on a past that we're divided about.
And there are scores of killings where police and army involvement is only now coming to light. Another person seeking the truth is Denise Mullen. Last week, she went back to the house where her father was shot dead.
So this is the house here.
This is the house here, it's not on.
For the first time in 37 years.
This is where it all happened, 37 years ago. And I do actually remember seeing my mother's 2 feet going out the window.
Right. She was jumping out the window at the back at the same time.
And I sat with Daddy here, a 4-year-old covered in blood. And
from your father?
Yeah.
Denise, 4 years old, found clinging to her father who'd been shot 17 times. Then clinging to her mother as thousands turned out for the funeral of this prominent SDLP activist. 2 men were convicted of the murder of Dennis Mullen, although the family believes at least 2 other men were also centrally involved. One was a British soldier, the other a policeman. And the HET report says that inquiries about these 2 men were never followed up. For the first time, we can reveal that the HET investigation cites several RUC and Army officers who were either witnesses or directly connected to this murder. None was ever interviewed.
Well, those that authorised Daddy's death and those that were being paid RUC and UDR personnel to protect everyone in Northern Ireland. How did they get away with this?
Because the people who were being paid to protect people were, as you say, murdering people.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yeah, collusion.
Who's this?
So a large number of legal claims will soon reach the Police Ombudsman, the High Court and Attorney General. So far, the state shows no signs of accepting responsibility.
But what families really want, more than anything, is for the authorities, whether it be the police or the army, to say, yes, we accept on a civil standard of probability that there was wrongdoing, what we did was wrong, it shouldn't have happened, that investigations were flawed.
No one goes down the road of litigation as a first choice. It's always the last choice. These families don't want the indignity of having to go to court to seek the truth. But if the British government persists in refusing to give them that truth, they have no option.
The body of Dennis Mullen lies peacefully just up the hill from where he was shot. His family has not found peace, nor scores of other families, only now finding out some of the truth. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, Armagh.